Welcome to this special video. R5 Mark II and the R1 were announced, but today we're going to talk about the R5 Mark II. So many specs, especially for video, that matter. No, I do not have the R5 Mark II. I didn't get one of those early releases, but I do have the R5 in front of me because I'm looking at it and I'm like, should I upgrade? I'll tell you at the end of this video. But are you here for the specs? How can I share some of the specs before I go over the rest? I know. I'm gonna hit it. That's right, a song.
Canon EOS R5 Mark II with specs that thrill. 8K RAW at 60 FPS of videographer skills. Slow motion up to 240 FPS, capturing the thrill. Full frame 4K RAW video of image fill. No time limit to hinder, let creativity soar. 45 megapixels, vivid details galore. Improve autofocus, a photographer's lore. Canon EOS R5 Mark II, cameras adore. Mark II in hand, unleash the panto. Filmatic magic unfolds. R5 Mark II in action, memories it molds. Every frame a masterpiece, every story it holds. Photographers and filmmakers, its excellence extols. Revolutionary innovations, camera dreams come alive. No time limit to hinder, let creativity soar. 45 megapixels, vivid details galore. A photographer's lore. Canon EOS R5 Mark II, cameras adore. Unleash the power, R5 Mark II in hand. No time limit to hinder, let creativity soar. 45 megapixels, vivid details galore. Improved autofocus, a photographer's lore. Canon EOS R5 Mark II, cameras adore. Mark II in hand.
But I got that over with. Let me go over a couple of the specs that we were mentioned in the song, or not mentioned in the song, but thank you. I hope you enjoyed that. So 45 megapixel, but it's a backside illuminated sensor. It could shoot up to 30 frames per second when it's taking pictures, which is great, improved from the 20 frames per second, and you should have less rolling shutter on this camera than you did on the original R5, which is great. Also, and this is specifically for video, because if you're new to my channel, please subscribe. I talk about cameras specifically for video, so no pictures here. Although I do take pictures sometimes, but I'm not a photographer. Anyway, going on with additional specs. So the song mentioned no time limit to hinder, and that's what I love. Now, it's been out in other camera bodies, but it's almost like the R5 body is like the last to get it. You never got a firmware update on the original R5, but the R5 Mark II, no 30-minute time limit. So thankfully, that's one of the, believe it or not, one of the main reasons why I wanted to upgrade, because I wanted to do away with that time limit. Other cameras that I have no time limit, but to have an R5 with no time limit is great. Now you got 8K up to 60 frames per second thanks to a new battery that they're using. It's no longer the LPE6EN batteries, which was getting long in the tooth with all those letters that they're doing. So this was the LPE6EN battery. Now it's going to be the LPE6P. So 2 less letters and 1 P, I guess. So what it'll do is it'll do better battery usage so that you can shoot up to 60 frames per second 8K internally on the R5. Now the R5C actually could do up to 60 frames per second, but you needed an external power source just to be able to do that. Now, other things that you have is SRAW, which I mentioned in the song, 4K full frame, up to 60 frames per second RAW, internally on the camera, and it can do that in this new SRAW format that they're putting in the camera, which is amazing. I'm super happy about that. I'll probably end up using that more often than the 8K RAW, because I like to work with RAW footage, but I still will use 8K RAW because I used it all the time on this camera. I know a lot of people say, I don't need it, I'm good with the compressed formats. Well, I've done a lot of productions in 8K RAW, and what I'm able to do, how I'm able to push those colors, and it's not all about like rescuing my footage when I get the white balance wrong or the ISO levels wrong in exposure, but it's nice to have and it allows so much flexibility when I'm editing colors in post that you just don't get out of a compressed video format. Also, you also get waveforms, you get false colors, you get all of those in the camera which you didn't get before, and you get additional codecs, not just RAW, but additional codecs such as SHAVC and all those codecs that are mostly video based now in this camera. And you get 16 stops of advertised dynamic range. We'd have to see like a video from Gerald Undone to see how much that really is when it gets the camera in hand, which is interesting. But you also get C-Log 2 along with C-Log 3. Now C-Log 2 never came to the R5 unless you recorded RAW, because the actual sensor couldn't really record that many levels of dynamic range, which is what C-Log 2 is for. C-Log 2 is really to push the dynamic range above 14 stops. C-Log 3 was really for up to 14 stops, and because that's all this sensor can do, they never really needed to give you C-Log 2. Although, like I said, you could get it off of RAW, but it wasn't necessary. You didn't get any extra additional information off of the sensor on the R5, but in the R5 Mark II, you will get that. So you have almost cinematic quality video footage with 16 stops of dynamic range, which is unheard of in an EOS R5 body. Now, of course, it's a little thicker as well because it's got vents, and I've seen that the R5 Mark II can potentially overheat. I would think when recording those 8K 60 modes, for example, or 4K 120 potentially, especially because it's also recording audio with it and tracking autofocus. R5 without vents is able to record almost limitless in regular room temperature settings. In 8K 30 and 4K 120, it does kind of overheat after 45 minutes, but who's recording all of that? And you could do 4K oversampled without needing to worry about overheating. And you could do 4K 60 without needing to worry about the camera stopping on you on the original R5. So I'm hoping the R5 Mark II, because of all of this new technology and the improved autofocus and the processors that they put in it, that it's not suffering from overheating too much. Because although it's great that they have a battery grip that can mitigate the overheating issues, I don't want to spend $300 on that battery grip. However, on the flip side, it does help improve how long the camera will last when you have a really long shoot to record and you have extra battery. However, you can hear the fan from the camera when it's running, which I don't particularly like and I don't want to have to deal with. So I'm really hoping that at least you can push the camera. I really don't mind if 8K 60 overheats it too much because I won't be using that mode too often, but at least 8K 30 or the 4K SRAW don't overheat, or make it really long before you overheat, because I don't want to run into those situations because I might have to still bring around my R5. Now, those are most of the specs. Of course, you can look up the specs or look at other videos, which I'm sure you've done. I hope you enjoyed this video. The last thing I wanted to say, and answer for you guys, am I upgrading from the R5 and getting the R5 Mark II? I already put in my pre-order. Absolutely. Now, if you like this video and want to see more, and maybe even some more music, who knows, definitely consider subscribing. You can make my day if you subscribe to this. Magnus, and I'm out.